Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, in this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the Cat. Cat, how you doing this week?
Doing good. Doing good. I can complain, but I won't.
Well, I mean, go ahead. I mean, we got time. It's just the two of us.
My foot hurts. It's really hot. I have to go for a walk after this because I'm in a Fitbit challenge and I can't lose. And also one of my coworkers got their finger cut off. So that's my week. And
okay, the floor is yours.
No, it's just been a weird week. It's only Tuesday when we're recording this, by the way.
All right. Well, that certainly beats my week of getting yelled at by my boss to yell at someone on another team for a fuck up that they made. So I had to. It was my boss yelling at this other guy by proxy, and the proxy just happened to be me. So yeah, so that's fun. Anyway, we got a fun show for you guys tonight. Something that I would say that we were really looking forward to, except it really surprised us, and that's Voltron Season 7. We had this just completely snuck up on us. Like, I didn't even know that Season 7 was coming until it was already out. I don't know about you, Kat.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing people posting on Facebook and Twitter, "Don't spoil Voltron this weekend." And I was like, what? Doesn't that not come out until... Wait, when? What? That's out this week already?
It's like being attacked by ninjas, except instead of killing you, they give you awesome shows about robot lions.
Yes, but then you still have to avoid social media until you've seen it. So it's like, oh god, oh god.
I think the reason why I didn't notice it because I was so busy tearing into all of the Smash Brothers Ultimate reveals that have been coming out in the last couple weeks. So yeah, that was fun. So that's going to be a fun discussion. We're really looking forward to it. Big season this season. We're just going to say that right off the bat. A lot of stuff happened. There's going to be a lot to unpack. So we're going to jump right into it, starting with, as always, Ask a Geek. And we got some questions here. So we got a couple questions here from Tyler Wheeler, who's a frequent offender. And his first couple questions are to me. He asks, what advice would you give someone who is looking to start a game collection beyond the obvious, like searching through local stores and trying not to go over budget? Well, I'd say if there were three important tips that I would give out, the first is do your research, because there's stuff that you really ought to know going into collecting that you wouldn't really think you need to know. Such as how to spot fakes, because there are actually now starting to come out on the market fake Nintendo games. I know, it's weird. So learning how to spot those is really, I would say, is kind of an important thing. And it's something that's actually caught me. I got caught by this guy. I bought what I thought was a legit copy of Turtles in Time for the Super Nintendo. And it wasn't until I got home and, was unpacking all my stuff and going through it that I noticed that the Nintendo engraving that's supposed to be on the back of the cartridge wasn't there. So I took the cartridge apart and turned out, yeah, it was a repro. Which, repros on their own, I'm not opposed to, as long as the person selling them makes it clear that you're buying a reproduction. They're not selling it as a real cartridge, because there are games out there that are just so legit rare and hard to find that some people are making repros just for people who just want to play the game and, not necessarily collecting for money. I'm going to give the store that sold me the game the benefit of the doubt and assume that they didn't know it was a repro when they sold it to me, but it's still kind of it's something you need to kind of be on guard and be on the lookout for. Second big tip that I would give is get into collecting for the right reasons. If it ever stops being fun, then that's a sign you need to walk away. And that kind of leads into the third tip that I would give, and this is the one that I still fall into on a frequent basis, and that is don't fall into the trap of comparing your collection to the collections of others. I follow a lot of retro game collecting YouTubers like Metal Jesus or Games of War, and these guys have like huge collections, and it's really easy for me to fall into the trap of watching these videos and seeing all the stuff they have and going, oh god, my collection will never be that big. My collection is so tiny, despite the fact that I have like some 400 plus games. You know, but the thing you got to remember is that these guys have been collecting for years. I think Metal Jesus has been collecting for like some 30 years. So, you know, you have to remember that Rome wasn't built in a day. So don't fall into the trap of comparing your collection to other people's collections and, you know, getting discouraged. And I would say that last one also applies to any kind of collection, not just games, whether you're into collecting, you know, tabletop games or anime or manga or stamps. I don't know what the hell do people collect out there?
Stuff and things.
Stuff and things, yeah. Whatever you're looking to collect. And his next question is actually for you, Kat. And I'm going to type this title into the chat because there is no way on God's green earth that I, with my filthy Yankee mouth, am going to be able to pronounce this title. But he's asking if you've seen the 2018 reboot of that.
Gegege no Kitaro. No, I haven't. There's a reboot? I didn't know there was a reboot. I haven't seen the original either. Hold on, let me Google this to see if it's what I'm thinking it is. No Kitaro. Oh, yeah. I know what this is. Ha ha ha. Okay. No, I haven't. This was actually one that I did want to watch because it is very folklore heavy. I'm glad actually somebody asked me this so I can put it onto my queue somewhere so that I can actually try to watch the reboot, because this is one of those ones where, I don't know, it's just been going on forever and ever and ever. But not a lot of it has actually made it over to the States. And then for it to come out recently, pretty cool. I don't know if it's released here in the US, but if it is, I want to add it to my queue because folklore, yokai, this is my bread and butter for anime.
Well, okay, for those of us like me who have no idea what this is, much less even be able to pronounce it, what is this about?
I don't know. I don't know it that well. I just know that that's what, like, it has a lot of like ghosts and monsters and demons and stuff in it, and that's the kind of shit that I love.
Okay, all right. Okay, so all right. So I guess the answer to that question, Tyler, is no. She hasn't seen it yet.
In short, no. Sorry.
Alrighty, and let's see here. Another question. Okay. Here's a question here, and this one is from Rick, and he asked a very kind of unusual and kind of PTSD inciting question about Infinity War. Who do we think might have survived the snap or been destroyed by the snap that we didn't see get affected in Infinity War?
Oh man. So who didn't we see in Infinity War, period? Obviously AntMan's okay in that he didn't get zapped. But obviously he wasn't okay from where he left off in Ant-Man. Hawkeye did not appear, so, and we know he's in the next film, so he's fine.
So then I'm gonna place the bet that one or more members of his family got zapped, and that's what's going to compel him to be in the next Infinity War movie.
Almost certainly. I would put so much money on somebody in his family dying, or at least being gone. Let's see. I'd like to think that Captain Marvel is going to be okay, that she's going to step in and help them figure out what the fuck to do. Let's see. We didn't see what happened to Zuri. So if she's around, they might be okay from a tech point of view for everybody who's left on Earth. Gosh, who else? Crap. Because most everybody, we know what happened to them, one way or the other.
I still have to catch up with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I don't know if it is affected in any way by the snap.
That's true. I haven't kept up with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for a while.
Yeah. So I'm going to bet that Coulson at the very least survived the snap, because without him, I mean, there's no real show. let's see. Oh, this is a bit of a question. The only other people that I can think of that we wouldn't have seen in Infinity War are the people from the Marvels, from the Netflix shows, which they've been pretty consistent about keeping those separate from the films.
Yeah, you know what? My roommate and I were thinking about, who we haven't heard from in a long time, is the Abomination. I know it'll never happen, but if they had to have some monster on their side because the Hulk won't come out, the Abomination is still there, still locked up somewhere.
And, you know, leaping off that, you know who I'm hoping did get zapped, and that's fucking General Ross.
Oh, fuck that guy. He's such a douchebag.
Like, between how he treated Banner and the Incredible Hulk and his whole attitude towards the Sokovia Accords, like, no, if that guy got zapped, I would shed no tears.
Yeah, it does bring up the question of what leadership is left in anywhere in the world. Are there any world leaders left? Who is going to be running? There's so many questions to answer. Oh my god. But like, nothing could piss me off more than if General Ross didn't get zapped in all of this, and then he becomes like a really important world leader more than he already is because there's nobody else and he has to take over. God, that would piss me off so much. Or
he becomes the new head of S.H.I.E.L.D., or even worse.
Oh god, just fucking no. He's awful. He's the worst.
Did we find out what happened, if anything happened to Pepper Potts?
No, we haven't heard from Pepper. And then General Ross's daughter, you know, Bruce Banner's long-lost love interest. Betty. We haven't seen her in a million years.
I don't know if they're ever going to pick that up again, because
I wish they would, so that they could get over the whatever it is they're trying to do with Natasha and Bruce.
Well, I was going to say, because they got that, and then there's also the fact that Liv Tyler is just fucking expensive to cast.
She's too beautiful to be in a Marvel film.
So let's see. Oh god. Other people that I would not be sad to see have been zapped. I'll tell you what. Who is that quote unquote bully kid from Spider-Man: Homecoming?
Oh, is it supposed to be Flash Thompson?
I think so, yeah. Except they made him a nerd this time around. I wouldn't be sad if he went away. But then again, I've never liked Flash just as a character concept. So anyway, okay. So this is kind of a nebulous question. All right, and that's all the Ask the Geek questions that we have for this week. Thank you as always for sending them in to us at drgonzo@nerdofthethirdpower.com. We love getting your questions, love reading them on the air. So get your questions sent in. You just might get it read on the show. And with that, now that we've eaten our vegetables, we're going to jump right into the meat. And that is our discussion of Voltron Season 7, which, like I said at the start of the show, this really kind of snuck up on me. Like, because like all the other seasons, I feel like there's been some sort of press lead up, like we've gotten a trailer or something in the days leading up to the release, but I don't remember seeing anything leading up into Season 7.
Yeah, and sometimes with it, they'll release like the month that it's going to come out. They'll say like coming in the summer or coming in August or something, and I don't think that we even got that much.
And well, I mean, I can certainly say, given what happens this season, I can certainly see why they might not have released a trailer, because holy shit, spoilers ahoy. We're just going to go ahead and just sound our patented spoiler alarm right now and let you know that there are going to be spoilers in this discussion. So if you've not seen Season 7, for God's sake, shut this show off now, go watch it, and then come back, because, wow, there is a lot to unpack. So let's start with our general thoughts on this season before we start breaking this down into component parts. And I'm going to go first by saying that if there were two words that I would use to describe this season, they would be intense and unbalanced. And I say intense because holy shit, once this season kicks off and really gets going, it just never stops.
It definitely was a wild ride. I haven't had a season of Voltron where I spent more than one episode just like standing around like pacing back and forth because my anxiety levels were through the roof. And I would go from like like going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, to being like, oh my god. Like, because you think like something really terrible is going to happen, but the action's really cool and you're terrified for the characters. Like there's a real sense of threat for the characters that you don't get out of even most shows. Most shows, unless it's Game of Thrones, you're like, yeah, the characters will be fine. And you know with Voltron that the characters are going to be fine. But holy crap, did they give you a legitimate sense of danger.
Indeed they did. And then as for the other word, unbalanced, the reason why I say that is because the first half of this season is a bit of a slog. Like we have half of a really good episode right at the start, and then filler, and then it isn't until I think like episode 6 that everything just kicks up into high gear, and it's just we're going 100 miles an hour until the end of the season. And I gotta say that the filler episodes for that we got in this season, some of the worst I've ever seen, but we'll get into that as we get into the episode by episode breakdown. So those are my general thoughts. Kat, what about you?
Well, like I said, it was intense. It was really good. I think when I watched the final episode of the season, I sat down and I said, this is the best episode of Voltron they've ever made. It was wild, and I was really caught up in the moment, so it might not actually be the best episode ever. But at that time, like, my heart was pounding. It was crazy, and I really enjoyed this season. Like you said, the beginning started off a little slow, but I didn't feel that it was a slog. I didn't really feel like there was more than one filler episode per se. I thought they did some weird shit with it, but I really liked this whole season.
All right, so let's start breaking down this season episode by episode, and I guess I'll get us started by saying that this season picks up pretty much immediately where season 6 left off. Lotor has been defeated, and the Castle of Lions has been destroyed, and the Voltron team has made the decision to return to Earth, which is something that certainly I have been clamoring for about 6 seasons, because I want to find out what the fuck is going on at Earth. But there's a bit of a hitch in the plan. A pair of them at the end of last season, it was discovered that Shiro, the Shiro that we've known and loved since I think season 2, hasn't been the real Shiro. It's been a sort of Terminator / clone Manchurian Candidate style that's been inserted into the team. Well, at the end of season 6, the real Shiro's essence was pulled from the memories of the Black Lion and inserted into a new clone body. So now the issue is we've got to get Shiro back somehow. And the other issue is that the fight against Lotor has taken a lot out of the Lions. So in addition to having to plan out this interstellar journey, which I think they said is going to take them like, what, a year and a half?
Something ridiculous, yeah.
Yeah. In addition to planning for that, they've now got the Lions only at half power. So they have to find some way of giving the Lions enough power to where they can either make the journey or at the very least get to the nearest port where they can properly recharge. So the first episode is kind of split between these two plot lines. Shiro is in a coma and locked up in this pod, and Keith is refusing to leave his side. And as we see, it's kind of a flashback plot, because most of what happens with this plot thread is just flashbacks to Keith and Shiro's relationship back on Earth at the Galaxy Garrison. We see how the two of them met, and how they developed this friendship between the two of them. And we find out more about Keith's backstory, where after his mother disappeared and his father, I guess, passed away, he basically became a bit of a rebellious delinquent. He was one of those stereotypical orphan kids that you see in all these action shows. You know, moved from home to home. You know, never had any respect for authority figures. Yada yada yada. And Shiro was sent to Keith's school as part of a recruitment drive, with the most brilliant recruitment line ever. I'm here to teach you about the Galaxy Garrison by playing a video game.
Works every time.
And he sees that Keith has some serious skill and piloting potential, and kind of takes on a mentorship role. And the whole thing, it's really interesting to see this relationship and this bond grow between these two characters, because from word jump, it's been established that Keith has owed a very heavy debt to Shiro for something, but we've never really gotten any clear explanation as to why. And now we can kind of see why these two characters mean so much to each other. And we not only get a lot of insight into Keith's character, but we also get a lot of insight into Shiro's character that we didn't have before.
Yeah, it was really actually very nice to see how they became friends and get a better grasp of their relationship with one another, because like you said, straight out of the gate, we've understood that these two have known each other for longer than everybody else has known each other, and that they have been very good friends. I mean, that was one of the most confusing things about the first episode. Like, the first episode of the whole show was that Keith knew Shiro and wanted to save him, and nobody else actually knew Shiro personally, but somehow Keith already did. And they, you know, never really went into any details about how they had met or established, you know, any bit of their relationship, which is, you know, that's one approach to take. So it was nice to get that bit of fulfillment finally after all this time of how they met and why they mean anything to one another.
Yeah. So at the end of the end of the episode, Shiro wakes up, and you know, the team is back together again. The other half of the episode is really kind of forgettable, because it's really about the rest of the team trying to find this element, this Fauntleroy something. I can't remember what it's called. Fontanium.
Some MacGuffin.
To try and help recharge the lions, and through circumstances they wind up getting shrunk, and this half of the episode becomes Honey, I Shrunk the Paladins. Which is really just kind of forgettable. Although the element in question that they're looking for does wind up coming back later, which we'll get to that when we come to it. So the second episode sees the gang on their trip to Earth, and among the people that's traveling with them is Keith's mother, who for those who don't recall, is a member of the Blade of the Marmora. And they wind up finding this abandoned Blade of Marmora outpost and going down checking out, because they find a life sign. And it turns out to be one of Hagar's, I guess, priests or something, that's actually trying to lure them into a trap. And the Blade of Marmora has been pretty decimated. And it's here that we get the first real bombshell of the series. And that is that it's been about 3 years in universe between the fight between Voltron and Lotor and now, and that the Paladins have actually been gone a lot longer than they thought they were. So
yeah, that was one of the big things where I couldn't understand why they decided to do that until we got closer to the end of the series. I thought, this is weird. They put a time jump in there, and they don't make it apparent right away why they did that time jump. And then later you find out why. But it was sort of shocking, because they had already done a time jump with Keith and his mom being on that, like, whatever in the previous season. Mm-hmm. That had been a big chunk of time for them. And they had made such a big deal for, like, one episode about it. But this became like, here's a time jump for everybody. And we are going to find out the consequences of it.
Yeah. And then the time jump issue also carries over into the next episode, where the Paladins are captured by two of Lotor's remaining generals, who we finally get names, or at least their names are spoken aloud for the first time, so I know what to call these people, and that's Zethrid and Ezor. Managed to get the
said their names before.
And I don't recall them, but they wind up getting the jump on the Paladins and capturing them. And we start to learn that there's been the Galra Empire isn't what it was. That apparently, with Lotor's disappearance, a bunch of warlords are trying to take control of the Empire. You got all these factions going against each other, and the generals are now pretty much pirates. It's all but said that they stole this cruiser, and now they're on the run from the greater Empire. And we also learned that Aksha, the third remaining general, is kind of on the outs with her comrades, and that raises up some interesting questions.
Yeah. First off, Ezor and Zethrid are my faves. They're so funny. I love them together too. Like as a like a comedy duo because they balance each other out so well. Aksha, on the other hand, is one where I've never really gotten what they're trying to do with her character. Like, she's got something going on with Keith because they fought together one time, kind of unknowingly, kind of knowingly. And she always had a bit more of a thing about Lotor and not really trusting Hagar. And I don't know what they're going to do with her. Like, Ezra and Zathura are more of a, they're just going to go with whatever's most convenient. But Aksha seems like she's got a plan that just hasn't come into fruition. I don't know if there's some sort of long game or what, but it seems like they want to do something with her, but they haven't figured out what yet.
Yeah. So yeah, I think what's going on with this first half of this season is they're actually trying to set up for season 8. Because there really is no opportunity for a whole lot of setup with the second half. So I think they're taking this first half to try and set up the plot threads that they're going to pick up again in season 8. Things like the destruction of the Blade of Marmora, the infighting within the Galra Empire. You know, so I'm thinking that that's what they were doing, and I think probably once season 8 comes out and we see what they do with these threads, I might come back and be a little kinder to the first half of the season. Oh, I'm sorry, it was so harsh. I know now what you were trying to do. But yeah, for now it's just on its own, it's very easy for the first season to feel very disjointed and random, and nowhere is that more apparent when you get to episode 4. The game show.
The filler episode. Every season has one. Like, for a few seasons now, every season has had a completely irrelevant, pointless filler episode. And I am inherently opposed to them because they serve no purpose. But they're fun. And that's what they're there for. They're there as a break between a little bit of the beginning and then when shit starts to get heavy at the end. And if you just treat it like it's not part of the story, as it's a little omake or something, it's fine.
See, I didn't like this filler episode, and I
didn't either.
Yeah.
I thought it was really dumb. The last one was just as dumb, but it appealed to my interests.
Well, I think also because the difference between this episode and the Dungeons and Dragons episode is the Dungeons and Dragons episode we got, it was filler and it didn't have any real relevance to the overall plot. But we got some insight into, what these characters do in their spare time, and so we got to know some more of their little foibles and character quirks, and so we basically got some insight into their character. This episode, I mean, the whole thing kicks off. It literally just starts with this alien game show that the Paladins just randomly find themselves in. And it's just a series of random gags stitched together. Like, at one point, the opposing team is made up of Zarkon, Hagar, Lotor, and some random mook.
That was literally the point of this episode, was to have all the bad guys acting silly. Like, that's the only thing I can think.
Yeah, and it was just... we didn't get any real insight into anybody's character or learn anything new, or and honestly, I don't know about you, but I didn't find most of the jokes that funny.
No, the jokes weren't that funny, but actually you're wrong. We did get insight into the characters because they're told only one of you can leave here, and you have to choose one person to leave. And it's basically asking the question of if you had to pick one person out of your team to live and everybody else is sacrificed, who would you choose and why? And that insight I thought was really, really great, because nobody picked themselves. Everybody picked someone else, and for like very relevant reasons. And it really told me what they think of each other, how much they respect each other. As much as occasionally they have stupid fights and they can get competitive, especially with like Lance. I almost called him Sokka. I called him Sokka in my head. With Lance and Keith and everything. But when it came down to it, none of them would be selfish enough to choose themselves. They all value one another to the extent that they would sacrifice themselves for the other person. I thought that was really cool. But that was only like one tiny, tiny fragment. That was like 30 seconds of an episode.
Now, the next...
Dumb.
Yeah. Now the next filler episode, well, at least I call it filler, that was episode 6, and that was the episode where the paladins, something winds up going wrong with the lions, and as the paladins exit their vehicles to try and repair it, they wind up getting separated from the lions. Now they're just floating in space, separated from the rest of the world. And I know that I call this episode filler, but I actually did enjoy this episode because it got what I felt was more insight into these characters and how they sort of respond to each other. Because there's no clearer window into what a person really is than when you put them in a position that is to their perception completely hopeless. And we got to see these characters just bare their souls, their insecurities to each other. And I don't think that's emblematic any more than when we see Hunk have his moment where he's trying to keep the whole team together, but you can also see like he is just like at the end of his rope, and he just comes out and says, "Look, this whole time we've been out here doing this, I have been scared out of my wits, and I have just been trying to keep everything together and maintain because I'm just like one bad day away from just completely breaking down." And I absolutely love the character writing in this episode.
Yeah, everybody needs a lost in space, dying in space kind of moment to show their true colors, and it really shows what they will do when they're on the brink. And for me, it was interesting because Keith was trying to keep them together for a lot of it, and then Keith eventually loses hope, and it's Hunk that has to pull them all together. And I really feel like the writers went out of their way to make a very good story for Hunk this season, because they spent every other season ignoring his existence and not really giving him a story arc of any kind. So this season we got a little more Hunk, and this was a good episode for him where, yeah, he is scared all the time. And he barely can hold his shit together to do all of the scary things. And when you need somebody to pull everyone together, when everyone else has lost hope, there will be Hunk. Yep.
And then this also sets up the fact that the paladins are able to summon the lions remotely, and also a new power, randomly Voltron power, is introduced that speeds them across the universe to Earth in a flash. And when they arrive, they start receiving this transmission that Earth's been overrun by the Galra. And this is where we're just going to not even try and break the rest of the season down episode by episode, because holy shit, everything just weaves in and out of itself. It's all one long story. So we're just going to treat the whole second half of the season as just an arc. But this is where shit gets really good.
Yeah, it gets really intense. This is the part where I started walking around and pacing and not being able to control my flailing, and oh my gosh, it gets real crazy. So when we had said we want Voltron to go back to Earth, this is not what we meant. This is what we got, but it's not what we meant. And this was the point of the time skip, which we didn't realize until a good chunk in. The point of the time skip was that Papa Holt makes it back to Earth, tells the Galaxy Garrison, we're going to be under attack. There's this huge threat out there. They start to believe him. They start setting up defenses. They start building an army that can compete, technologically speaking, with the Galra. And then the Galra arrive. And then it becomes a good long chunk of war.
Yeah, this is... And this is one of the reasons why I kind of felt so smacked about the face by a fish by this season, if I may use a rather silly phrase, in that the shift of the show, excuse me, let me try that again. The tone of the show shifts dramatically. Up until this point, it's been a fairly lighthearted giant mech story. It's had its threats and its serious moments, but for the most part, things have been pretty lighthearted and, kind of goofy comic book style story. But from episode 7 on, no, this becomes a full-on war story. And we start seeing things happening that we, we're just not prepared for. And we start seeing that you know, that how we get more of a sense of how powerful the Galra Empire is, because up until this point, we've just seen them going up against the Voltron force, who can kind of go toe-to-toe to them on kind of an even keel. Now we're seeing what happens to a planet that is just not even on the same level of a single battle fleet, let alone the Empire. And we're introduced to some new characters who are going to be very important this season. Of course, we have Sam Holt, who is kind of the leading the charge on getting everything prepared and getting Earth ready for the attack. And then you also have Admiral Sonda, who plays the Skeptic. And I don't like her character for reasons that we will get into later.
I don't think you're supposed to.
Well, I mean, I was ambivalent toward her character right at the start, just because I hate the trope of the what I call the big picture general, where or excuse me, the small picture general. It's like, okay, yeah, there's this threat that's coming, but you know, we can't really risk our planet on this whole thing that's just gonna shit on us anyway. I really just don't like the whole, you know, okay, yeah, this thing is out there and it's a shitty thing, but it's not our problem, you know, and we'll worry about it when it is. So that was why I was ambivalent towards Sonda's character. We'll get into the real reasons why I grew to hate her character later. And then we're also introduced to a group of characters that I call the B team, who are a set of pilots that are chosen to pilot Sam's new fighters. And we're also introduced to Veronica, who is Sam Holt's sort of right-hand lady. And we later find out is Lance's sister, which I really like that neat little touch, because we finally got to see some insight into the Paladins' families and how they're reacting to the Paladins' absence. And one of the key themes that runs through this episode is the Paladins coming back and trying to find out what's going on with their families while they've been away. And Hulk, let me try that again. And Hunk, poor guy, like, he is the only character throughout this season who doesn't find out what happens to his family or if they're safe until like close to the very end. Oh no, wait, he finds out that his family's in a prison camp. That's right. Everyone else's families have escaped and are hiding with the resistance, but poor Hunk, his family is in a prison camp trying to build this weird Galra structure that we find out what it is later, and it just tears him up. And it was really, the character writing at this point just goes through the stratosphere, where we see, you know, the Paladins realize that this situation is much worse than they could have imagined. And we get a sense, at least I got a sense several times, that, you know, the characters were kind of looking around and going, there's no way I'm going to be able to handle this. I fought Robis and Zarkon and Lotor, but this is just too much.
It really was. It was overwhelming, these couple of episodes, because it felt a little bit like the end of the Hunger Games meets Independence Day, where it's the level of alien destruction of Independence Day. Like major cities are wiped off the map. That is not something you get in a children's cartoon. Like, that's not something I would have expected of Voltron, where it's just anybody, and any of the humans who are left alive are enslaved. That is some dark shit. And you've got this underground resistance doing what they can, scraping together any form of help that they can provide, and it's not very successful, and there's not much hope. But you know, they've got their B team, they're all really cool. We don't get to see very much of them, but I'm hoping we'll see more of them next season.
Yeah.
And then the team arrives. Voltron shows up, but it was really interesting because basically a full episode without Voltron doing anything.
We got a couple of them.
Yeah, like two full episodes of nothing but here's what's going on Earth for the few years where Voltron has been gone. It was really disheartening. You watched it and you couldn't imagine how they were going to get out of it. And it was different than the other types of violence and destruction we have seen in Voltron, because everything we've seen up until now is very impersonal. You know, it's the Paladins fighting for the universe.
But it's all over there.
Yeah, it's all over there. It
this
doesn't
is the scouring of the Shire.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. It's, you know, very, even if they take it very seriously, it's not personal for them. You know, there's nothing at stake except themselves. Now this is all of their family, their loved ones, everything that they've ever known and loved is at stake. So the stakes are so much higher than they've ever been. Even while they're fighting to save the universe, now the stakes are so much higher.
Yeah, and and I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm glad that they didn't do, because you see it so often with stories like this, where heroes leave their homeland to go save the universe, and they come back when the war has hit their homeland, and that's the inter-service fighting, where the people who've been on Earth, like, I expected to be like the people on Earth, like, oh, the Paladins are here, whoop-de-shit, where have you been? Now you're finally here. You know, where were you? You know, you left us here to deal with this on our own. Ooh, well, fuck you. But no, it's like everyone, it was like, okay, the Paladins are here. They can help us. Let's put our heads together and get shit done. Figure out how to win our planet back. And there was, except for maybe like one moment where a member of the B team was like, look, don't you understand the chain of command? We didn't get any of that inter-service fighting, because I fucking hate that trope so much. So overdone, and it was so refreshing to not see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they psyched us out with that. I think they led us to believe that there was going to be inner conflict, and with the B team specifically, and then they flipped it around on us and made the inner conflict be with Sonda instead. So I think we got duped for a hot second there, because we really thought the B team was going to turn on them and be mean about everything, and I really thought we were going to get that we're the ones who have been doing all the fighting and dying down here spiel, and we didn't get it, and I was really glad, because I was about to hate the B team, and then they turned it all around and they were great.
Yeah, and then I suppose that brings the elephant in the room, and Sonda herself. So the mysterious structures that are being built turn out to be some kind of vortex cannon, which it turns out is what the Galra Empire uses to destroy planets who refuse to submit to the Empire, which is why we've never seen a planet that's resisted, because they all got blown up. And the Galra general, who I can't remember what his name is. Let me look back here. It's one that we've seen before. I know that much. Sendak, yeah. Sendak and Sonda. Wow, now I see the foreshadowing. Okay, great.
There's Sendak and Sonda.
So Sendak offers the Earth this deal that if they turn over the Voltron lions, they will leave and not return, and Earth will be spared. And Sonda, in a moment of short-sightedness, takes that deal and sells the Voltron team out to the Galra. And the thing you got to know about Sonda is, throughout this whole season, she's basically been the Naismith. Every plan that Sam or the team or the Paladins have come up with, she has tried to shoot down, or tried to pull rank. No, we're not doing this. I'm in command here. And one of the this is part of the reason why I hate her character so much, is because I thought that she was just pissy that she had she basically lost control of the situation, that she wasn't the #1 top dog in charge, which again is another trope in military fiction that I see a lot of and I'm fucking sick of. And then it turns, they try and pull the whole bit where she's like, oh well, I sold out the team to try and save the Earth, and now I've done a horrible thing, and please forgive me. And I'm just like, no, you, throughout this whole time, you basically played, again, these are just my personal thoughts. It's like, okay, no, this whole time you've been playing to your ego. You've been acting like a child who's found out that they're not it. And now you're trying to act like an apology is going to make it all go away. And now I'm supposed to forgive you. No, that's not happening. I hope you die.
Oh, you're so mean. I felt bad for Sonda. Personally, just because when you look at the situation from her perspective, everything that's happening around her is completely ludicrous. There is no knowing if what Holt was talking about was true or not. Like, from her point of view, this was all just so above what anything that they were trained for that her caution to me makes a lot of sense. And her desperation at the end of trying to sell out Voltron to protect the Earth makes complete sense. It's a completely logical step to take. It is based in desperation and just like a coldness that you have to have to some, like a sacrifice of the few for the greater good. That again, it's a military trope and it's not really a good one, but it's grounded in logic. And this is a show that has always played to the heartstrings, and especially this particular part of the show. We sympathize with Sam Holt and his efforts because we know that he's right. But that's not what Sonda knows. Sonda doesn't know that anything that Holt is saying is actually true. And is trying to control a situation that is just absolutely bonkers when you think about it.
That is true, and I will be fair and say that a lot of my anger towards Sonda might be stemming from the fact that I read a lot of military fiction outside of Voltron. So as I mentioned, this is a story that Sonda's arc is one that I have seen many times before and have grown kind of tired of. So this may be a case of just Sonda being tainted by original sin.
Ew, that sounds gross.
Yeah. But like I didn't like her character, and I was kind of a little angry at the show for trying to make me sympathize with her when it was revealed that of course Sendak had decided not to honor his deal. But at the same time that all this is going on, Sam Holt and the B team and basically the what remains of the Galaxy Garrison, because the rest of the Earth has basically been pounded into dust, and there's nothing except prison camps and resistance cells, except for this one base that's under a particle shield. That is the sum total of the human resistance. That is all that's left of the garrison. Is trying to build this super battleship, which I guess becomes the replacement for the Castle Lions. And one of the things that I really liked about this arc was how it gave Shiro and Karan ways to meaningfully contribute to the greater effort. We see Shiro kind of basically fall back into basically becoming a general over the course of this season and falling into the leadership role that he was really born to be in. And then we also see Karan, who up to this point was, a goof, let's be honest, actually get to show off some real technical prowess and some real knowledge, and actually contributing in a meaningful way. A friend of mine who was watching this with me at this point, when Karan had done something to help Sam in his work on the ship, turned to me and said, "Okay, so Karan's arc in this season is basically I'm a genius in France."
Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is. Where it was really satisfying to finally give Karan something to do that wasn't everything. When they write Karan, everything that Karan does, even if it is incredibly brilliant, is tainted by comedy. Like, they can't give him a serious moment without somehow making it ridiculous and silly. Like, all of his accomplishments are like haphazard accidents.
Like, he just stumbles into it, but here we actually get to see him actually worked for it. Yeah,
like, just because by comparison, his knowledge of the technology and everything is so far advanced. So it's a genius in France kind of scenario. Poor French people, they didn't deserve that.
Blame Weird Al.
Blame Weird Al. And it was great to see Shiro, because there had been so many fluctuations between who's going to pilot what lion. Is it going to be Shiro? Is it going to be Keith? Who's taking the Black Lion now? Like, it kind of got tiring to not have an answer to that question, because you knew that there was too many pilots with too few robots, and somebody had to not be part of Voltron for a little while. And, for a hot second, Shiro was doing his best, and then Keith left, and so Shiro took over for the Black Lion, and it was again, and it was like, okay, just settle, people, settle. Pick something and stick to it for a little while.
This isn't Musical Lions.
Oh my god, they should totally play that, though. Oh, that would be a great filler episode. Now, there's a filler episode. Write that, send that in. So finding Shiro and Karan a place to be when they can't be part of, where they were before is really satisfying because they're both so good at it. And it just shows that they just needed to find that. They, everything was leading up to them being homeless and finding a big spaceship on Earth. Like, they needed it.
And as the plot continues on, it basically comes to a head when Sendak decides to deploy the vortex cannons and destroy the Earth. And basically, the Earth resistance and the Paladins have got to go all fucking out on trying to save the Earth. And when I say all out, like, I mean it. Like, this is, like, I can't even get part of the reasons why we can't break this down episode by episode, because everything just kind of bleeds together. It all felt like just one long story. But the action sequences in this season were just so nail-bitingly intense. And they managed to keep things tripping by introducing wrenches in the works at just the right moments. Like, one of the ones that I really enjoyed was, in addition to the cannons, there's also these focusing lenses orbiting around the Earth. And Sendak actually winds up using these beams to sort of redirect the cannon's beams at Voltron. And he gets pretty skilled at this. At one point, he actually manages to beat Voltron down into a standstill, because by the time, they've recovered from one attack, here's another one coming. And it really puts the kibosh on their original plan of, let's just beat them with Voltron and call it a day. And I really love the actual interplay of strategy and tactics, and the kind of back and forth seesawing of advantage and initiative that we saw in these battles, as opposed to just being, a one-sided curb stomp the whole way through.
Yeah, it was intense. And I liked that, even after Voltron showed up, they kept the B team around. The B team was still essential to the plan. And there was, if the stakes felt real, because even if we didn't have a strong emotional connection to the B team, because we'd only seen them for a couple of episodes, the introduction of Veronica was such a huge thing for them to do, to make the stakes a little bit higher.
I love Veronica's character.
She's great.
She is great. Like, even aside from the whole connection with Lance, like when they actually fake us out with in the flashback episodes with Sam on Earth, because she's introduced to us by going along with the B team while they're trying to gather up some fuel and some resources and food, and she pulls this heroic sacrifice so that the B team can escape with this train full of supplies. And I was like, oh no, please don't kill her. I love her character. She's so great. I want to see more of her. And then they bring her back, and I'm like, yes. But is it wrong of me to say that she is this show's Katara with a dash of Korra mixed in?
She's a little bit like that. Obviously, she's not like the star of the show or anything, but the personality is pretty on there. She's competent, a little bit like older sisterly to everybody. She's just really cool. Like, you really love her. She's a bit sassy. And that sacrifice fake out, that wrenched my heart. I was like, how dare they? Because, at this point, the half of the Earth has been annihilated. So what's one more person in the grand scheme of things for the show to just kill one more person? And I was like, no, don't kill the cool chick. And then she comes back. I'm like, yay, cool chick. And then you find out she's sister. And I'm like, holy shit. If they'd have killed her, I would have been so mad. And then she almost dies later. Because her and Lance are running a mission, and her vehicle gets bloated up. They blow it up, and like their truck rolls or whatever, and like that was a moment where you're like, oh shit, maybe they really will get her this time. Oh no.
Yeah, and it was great to see Lance and Veronica kind of play off each other. because now we kind of see why Lance has to be so quick on his feet, because he's had to contend with her all of his life.
Yeah.
So these are two people who have spent their whole lives just keeping up with each other.
Yeah, it's been killing me for quite some time, because it's been clear from the beginning that Lance comes from a big family who love each other a lot, and a lot of his lamenting about being out in space is just that he misses his family so much. And now we get a sense of, here's why. Look how cool his family members are. And it was really satisfying to get to actually, introduce one as a character who's been around for a couple of episodes, not just like, oh, here's his mom and dad, they're hugging and crying, and now we're never going to see them again. Like, it was really good to have her as a character.
And while we're on the subject of family, just real quick before we move on to the end game of this season, can we talk a little bit about Mama Holt and her
oh my god,
her bits in this series? Like, oh my god, like if there was a character that I just wanted to give a hug to throughout this season, it was Mama Holt, because she's the civvy. She doesn't really have any real ability or talent to contribute to the greater effort, but she's gonna come along for the ride, because that's the kind of person she is. And it seems like every moment of this season something is happening that would break a lesser person, but she just shoulders on it, and it's like, I just want to give her the biggest hug. Like, I wish she was my mom.
Yeah, and she doesn't take anybody's shit either. She has been through so much, never despairing, and then when all the bullshit starts happening at the Galaxy Garrison, she's like, no, fuck you guys. She's so cool. You kind of think maybe this is where Pidge gets it from.
Okay, so anyway, putting the train back on the tracks,
because we still got to talk about the ending.
Oh yeah, the final battle. They managed to through courage, determination, and clean living, destroy all the vortex cannons, and defeat Sendak. And it seems like all is going to be right with the world, and everything is going to be great. And then we're going to go on to the last episode is just going to be cleaning up and having the big party. When at the very last moment, a new challenger appears.
I just fucking screamed. I was just screaming "what" at my television, because it for a very brief moment kind of looked like Lotor robot. And then you realize very quickly, no, this isn't, but it is very aggressive and incredibly advanced.
See, my reaction was like, oh Christ, what fresh hell is this? Because here's the thing, up to this point, this season has been just so intense, and everything has been ratcheting up higher and higher and higher. And finally, when it's just like, oh great, we can finally take a break and breathe, along comes this guy. The closest analogy that I can make to it is you're playing Mortal Kombat in the arcades. You've just beaten the final boss. You're basking in your victory, and along comes some asshole putting his quarter in the machine, challenging you to a game, and then just cleaning the floor with you.
Yeah, and Voltron definitely got its robotic ass handed, because whatever this new robot was incredible.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, everything that it did was just beyond what Voltron was capable of. Incredibly hard to do any damage. They were basically toe-to-toe. And Voltron would certainly have lost were it not for the fancy new ship that Sam Holt has been building that turns into the giantest of giant fucking robots.
Oh my god, even the fucking the I can't remember what it's called, the big giant thing from G Gundam, with the Devil Gundam, would look at it and go, damn.
Yeah, and I definitely was not expecting the ship to function that way. I was expecting it to be like the Castle of Lions.
Hell, they weren't expecting it to work that way.
Right, and then just all of a sudden they're like, guys. And then it transforms, and I didn't think that was gonna happen.
And I love the shot that we got of Sam's face. He just has this look of utter, what the fuck? I did not put this in here.
And Shiro is just like, Shiro's got a Shiro, man. Gotta pilot something. Oh god, it was so wild. I mean, like, if it did turn into a robot, you know, cool. But a robot that was that big was unexpected. Like, it was huge. And between whatever they're calling that, I don't know if they have a special name for it. When
I think it was the Atlas.
The Atlas, yes.
I think the ship in general was just called the Atlas.
Right. We'll call it Atlas-tron.
And it still got its ass kicked by the new guy.
It did. So it took the Atlas and Voltron to barely beat this thing.
Yeah, and I'm convinced that's why they had the Atlas transform, was just to establish the threat that this thing had, that this comparatively tiny robot could just whip its ass without even blinking. And they wind up managing to destroy it by basically they have to wait for it to charge up its main cannon in its chest and stab it through there, because they're not scratching this thing's armor by any means. I mean, they are literally throwing everything they have at it, and it's not even causing this thing to blink.
Yeah, and then didn't they somehow get it to just plummet into the ocean?
I don't recall. I do recall the shocker that came later when they found out its pilot was an Altean. Yes, and so that raises some questions.
It does. So at the end, they defeat the evil robot in quotation marks. All is well, and we have a bit of Earth basically becomes part of the coalition, and a bunch of aliens start showing up the planet to help them, which was really cool because we got to bring back a shit ton of characters, even if it's just a montage, just bringing in characters that we haven't seen for a while, and establishing that Earth is going to be all right. Like, bad things happened, but they have the help that they need. They are protected now. It's going to be fine. And you get this sense of relief. And then they drag up the robot and crack it open and find an Altean inside. And that is where they left the season. And so I believe there's one more season after this, and that's it.
Yeah, season 8 is going to be the last season. And that sort of brings us something that I wanted to ask, because one of the things that, you know, the whole thing with the giant robot, with the newcomer robot aside, this very much felt like a final season.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's no way that I can think of as to where the show can go from here, and yet we have one more season. So I guess that's my question: is where else is there for the show to go? I know that the only thing that I can think of is that maybe Hagar has been up to something behind the scenes, because the rest of the Empire is still there. One of the things that we didn't point out, this whole fight on Earth, this is just against one small little splinter fleet of the Galra Empire. The greater force is still there, and Hagar remains unaccounted for throughout this whole season.
My thought is found an Altean was back to Lotor's 2 Altean colonies. He had one full of living people and one full of batteries. And basically the people of the first colony worshipped him like a god because they saw him as a savior. And I thought if there was anything that they could do with Alteans in the future would be to have a bunch of fucking evil Alteans working for Lotor. And knowing that there was a bit of a time skip, and that there are still Alteans out there who might be friendly to Lotor, because we don't know how much of the truth got out to them about why they were there and what was happening on the colony, is that maybe, because we still don't know for sure what happened to Lotor, is maybe Lotor reappeared in the regular plane of existence, and with his fucking upgraded, full of quintessence robot, went and found his colony and started building them super weapons. Because I strongly think that if Lotor goes nutso, totally nutso, he'll be as able to kill the Galra as he is Voltron. And if Lotor wants to build super weapons to take out the Galra, he could convince Alteans to do it.
That's one possibility. Another possibility that I see is maybe Hagar gleaned what Lotor was doing with those colonies and went back and harvested those colonies herself.
Oh, that could be. Ooh, that's fucked up.
Yeah, very fucked up. But like, you know, the thing is, like, I'm wondering what they're going to do to raise the stakes next season. Because like you said, I mean, they this season they made it personal. So once you've had that kind of emotional climax, like we've had with this season, like this is, let me put this whole Earth battle felt like what all the other seasons were leading up to. Like, this was the end game, this was the climax, this was the peak of the mountain. So I'm worried now about whether they're going to be able to maintain a similar momentum in season 8, or that if we might come to season 8 and it'll feel like a lot slower or a lot less important than the seasons that came before, if that makes any sense.
Right. And this is why I keep bringing it back to the colonies, because with Voltron, the pilots having their resolution, they know their planet is safe from the Galra. They know that nothing's ever going to attack them again. They know they can go home. But Allura and Karan can't. And like, they've accepted that for a long time, that they're the last Alteans, and then we find out about these colonies. And there hasn't been a resolution for that particular introduction into the story. Like, we don't know what's going to happen to them. We don't even know where these colonies are, per se. And we have somebody on board who does. So, you know, they have the resources that they need to go help those Alteans, and I think it would be the final bit of closure that the main characters need to basically restart a truly free Altean colony that Allura and Karan can take protection of and rule, or something like that. Even if they keep Voltron around, it would fulfill their need to find a home, you know? Yeah.
So, all right. And then, of course, well, you know, let's, we're kind of running a bit long here, so let's start wrapping things up. So let's talk briefly about what we'd, about some things that we'd like to see in the next season. And I tell you what, I'd like to see more of the B team. And I'm kind of looking kind of sly. I'm thinking that we might get an introduction to Vehicle Force Voltron, and it'll be piloted by the B team next season.
Yeah, I'd like to see the B team go into space. I think that would be such a thrill for them to not just be dealing with, you know, Earth problems with Earth technology, but, you know, for them to go out into space, because they were so, because of what was happening, they were so tense and uptight and everything. And I think just seeing a little bit of them in space and relaxing and getting to see the wonder of space would be really fun thing to do with them. I'd like to see what the fate is of the blade of Marika. You know, if they're gonna do anything to try and bring that back, or if there's a need for them. I'd like some closure on the colonies, because that's just hanging out there. They've got to do something with that. I'd like to see what Lotor's former minions are going to do. I'm committed to them, because they are just like Azula and her girls in Avatar is totally them, and I need more of them. I'd like to see Lotor come back like crazier and eviler than ever.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
They didn't close it. They didn't close that door.
No, they didn't. And like I said, Hagar still remains unaccounted for. We know that whatever she was doing it to support Lotor in some way. So I don't know, maybe she'll wind up, if he is dead, maybe she'll bring him back and he'll come back wrong or something.
Yeah, I think if he comes back, he's gonna come back so batshit insane. I genuinely think that if he's just going to be destroying the Galras, any Galra that he comes across, like on his way to getting to Voltron to kill them. And I think there might be a shred of possibility that there is enough of a good person in Hagar who, like, she really does love her son, will understand that he has to be stopped, and I really like the idea of her working with Voltron against Lotor.
I don't know how I think about that. I'd have to see it in practice before I could make a judgment.
Yeah, and Shiro would be so deeply uncomfortable with it. But yeah, it would make for a good story. You know, tentative allies. They did it with Lotor. Why not with Hagar?
All right. So let's start wrapping things up here. So just our final thoughts on this season and whether or not it's worth watching. So Kat, you first. What are your final thoughts on Voltron Season 7?
It was another extraordinary season of really an extraordinary show. I highly recommend that if you haven't watched this season yet, definitely dig right in. It is very, very good stuff going on. It really sets up for an interesting final season, and that's just how many they were originally scheduled for. Maybe if it continues to stay popular, maybe they might want to make more of it.
I don't know, but I will say this. When you get to the second half of the episode, carve out some time to just shotgun it, because you're not going to be able to watch just a couple episodes and then stop and have to come back later. You're going to be like, no, I need more. I need answers. What happened?
Yeah, I'm really glad that it's on Netflix as opposed to any place else, so that you can binge watch the whole thing at once and then scream at your television.
Yeah, the fan base would not have survived if this was a weekly broadcast show.
Oh no, we would have freaked out.
We would have eaten ourselves. So yeah, I agree. This is, I think, the best season of the show so far. Like I said, it really feels like this is what everything else has been building up to, and it's just a roller coaster. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll make julienne fries. I don't know why I said that last bit, but it's definitely, I would definitely say go watch it. And this is, it's not just one of the best. It's not just the best season of this show. It's one of the best seasons of television in general that I've ever seen. I can't remember. I think the last time I was this riveted to my couch watching a television series was the final season of the Battlestar Galactica show from the early 2000s, and the final season of that show.
Yeah, it's an intense show. It's not what we expected out of this season at all. It was so much darker, so much more anxiety driving, and it was so excellent. I did not expect it to be this, and I'm so glad it was this.
It was the war story we didn't know we wanted.
Yeah,
but we're so happy we got it.
Yeah, it turned from a robot show to a...
and not many shows can say that. So, but anyway, that's about all. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up and say thank you as always for tuning in. We will see you guys next week. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the Cat.
We'll see you guys next week. Taka, play us out.